am moving to Texas. I'm moving to Houston, Texas, and I've made a decision because South Florida is pretty terrible if you want to keep drifting.
Tranquilo, yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode. Hold on, let me. Just adjust this real quick and we'll be good. Welcome to another episode of Good Choice, podcast number 4. Last week we kind of skipped one. Kind of had a couple plans to go do another one, and they kind of fell through. But we're back at it. I'm doing this one. This one's alone. This one's just a couple thoughts of things that I have, so you can hear my mind as I go and I drive on a Seta also. So just gonna be messing around. I'm gonna turn the volume down on this so you don't hear it on the camera. But yeah. So I am starting off today with car setup. As far as my S14, car setup to me was simple. I like to keep everything simple because of I just think that putting a whole bunch of like crazy parts and stuff make your car harder to work on when the time comes, especially like a midday in an event or something. You're going out and you have like a random part failure or something. It's better to kind of have more stock parts than aftermarket parts, I think, in my mind. You don't really need the craziest of the craziest things to drive well, because it it it's a lot of what's behind the steering wheel versus what's done to the car, I believe. And yeah, I really believe that, and it's very important. I think you should focus more on learning how to drive first before learning how to build a car. That is a huge one. And living where I live, it's been a thing for a lot of people to kind of overbuild before ever actually driving. Um, to me, a simple car setup is you don't even have to have a swap or anything. Just you could buy. I mean, the cars are getting harder and harder to find and to get, and that's making it more difficult. There's people buying cars, making them more expensive for other people to purchase. But I mean, there's a lot of cars that you can get out there that you can just have a simple setup. Let's say, well, for example, with my car, you find an S14, and start with the simple things. You get, even with a K, welded diff, coilovers, and some sort of lock, which GK Tech has made that real easy to get stuff to add a little bit of angle to the car. You don't really need to go crazy in the beginning. And just learn how to drive. Take a couple events to learn, to get comfortable, see what the car does, see how the car reacts to certain things, and just getting to know the characteristics of it. I think that's the easiest way to get yourself in there. it's always even less of a headache to do it that way because you're not breaking aftermarket parts, which to me makes it a lot easier. You just go to the auto parts store, and I mean, like what happened to me the other day, I had to find uh brake pads. I had to find brake pads and caliper bolts. The caliper bolts were hard for me to find, but I went to a hardware store and ended up getting them. But the brake pads were just a big. It was a random. It must like my pads. My caliper got loose. I didn't check it for a while. The rear calipers, and it ejected one of my pads. And so I had to go find brake pads. But drove to an auto parts. They looked at the nearest one, a 30-minute drive, and I found me brake pads. Went back to the track, put it all back together, and started driving again. So that made it a lot easier for me. And that's why I say like simple setups, making things that are easy to find factory makes it a lot easier to keep on driving. As far as skill level with the car setup, where I'm at now, I still like the most simple setup I could possibly get. So my car's SR20, welded diff, everything in the rear is pretty stock, as except for obviously the camber arms. But I run eBay arms. I don't run anything special. Just eBay traction and camber arms, and then an ISR tow rods. Um, I do that so I can keep everything. I had factory traction rods before because I didn't even like to change that because I didn't need to. But I mean, here and there it has advantages too. For the front, I run 40 mil extended lower control arms, Maxima inners, and ISR outers, and a cut and shortened knuckle by my friend Jamil, and that's pretty much it. I have 300ZX brakes, but that was easy for me to get. I didn't really waste money. I had my stock brakes forever in the front. Just get good pads and you'll be good. My SR ran stock for as long as I did. I did for a really long time. Stock turbos. Then I had a T28, and now I have a 3071R. Makes a little more power, but nothing crazy. Still under 300 horsepower. And entire motor stock. So people ask, "Oh, what have you done to the motor?" You rebuilt it. I had to rebuild it. I blew it up, but not bad. I cracked one of the pistons, and then I rebuilt it back to stock again. And I'm doing the same thing with the FRS one. So, and stock parts were available to me because I bought 3 motors and 2 with spun bearing. Well, one got donated to me, and then I bought another one with a spun bearing, and just took that one apart for parts. And luckily, I had the parts to rebuild 2 motors. Um, so yeah, the FRS is getting the same treatment. It's gonna be everything pretty much stock. It's even gonna run a bottom mount turbo. I'm not gonna do anything crazy. I'm thinking about doing T28. Um, so my thing is just running. I want to be running most of the time, and even if I do break down, it's an easy fix. Um, I don't have to go crazy looking for any parts, or I can make something trackside that'll make it work. Um, and that's why I keep everything pretty much as stock as I possibly can. Um, as far as setup, I'm everything's pretty much stock. Everything's either stock or like a factory kind of part that I can find somewhere. So I don't make anything really complicated. Um, all right. So setup now for the FRS, which is I'm doing the running the same concept. It's gonna be pretty much everything factory. on the FRS, so it's gonna be turnkey start. Um, I got a wiring specialties harness that I can run uh pretty much with the motor, since they've already done it for JZ and LS and all that. I can just I hit them up. They told me that it'll be available to order in a couple weeks, and they made it. It took like 2 months or so, a little less actually. And I got my harness, and it's been sitting there. So I got that out the way in the beginning, and then so it's gonna run stock radiator setup with fans, and then it's gonna run. Everything's gonna be working on the dash. I did it that way initially, so I can just no wiring headaches, nothing. I don't have to jump into wiring myself. I paid $1,200, just a steal, to get that motor wired up into the car. And then besides that, like I said, everything internally on the motor is stock except the head, because I got the head built. Um, I got the head from Leo, and it was built already, so um, that's that. 264 cams, valve springs and retainers. I think that's it. I think that's everything that it has on it. And then so besides that, yeah, everything's pretty much stock except for the head. The head's built, which is, I guess, a plus side. People are like, why didn't you just build the bottom end? I didn't really find a need to. I'm not hunting for power. Till the day that I am gonna hunt for power, I'll build another one slowly on the side and make it very nice and reliable. But I don't really need that right now. I just want to drive and have fun. Um, Besides that, I am still undecided on the turbo that I want to put on it, and then I have to figure out stuff for angle on that car, because the factory lock on that car is not very nice. But priorities are priorities, and number one is get the car running and drivable and as reliable as possible. And then somewhere along the way, I'll find out what I want to do lock wise. Um, Setup on that car, it's gonna be um doing. I'm not gonna do anything crazy. It's just gonna be a low, nice car. I wish people didn't cut out the back of that car and put Rocket Bunny stuff on it, but that happens, so now I have to deal with that. Um, I'm gonna do metal weld-on flares that I already have. I'm gonna do zero out the cam. I might not zero out the camera in the back, but it's gonna be pretty close. I want the car to drive good, obviously. Interior wise, it's gonna stay all stock. Possibly one day have AC, which will be real nice. Um, it's just gonna get a seat and a steering wheel. One seat for the driver's side, and that's about it. It's gonna use factory handbrake. That's it. It's gonna be a nice, clean interior with a bucket seat and a steering wheel. I think that interior is nice as is, anyway. So I like how everything look and how everything's set up, the dash and all that too. Bolting cage. That's one. That's one that I want to do. I want to do a bolting cage this time on this car, and and harness. That's it. Just harness for the driver's side. Uh, Wheels on the outside. Obviously, you probably already seen them. They're gonna be Minervas. That's gonna be the rolling setup, and then everything else that I have is gonna be spares as far as the Blitz, and then the TEs that I have. I'm searching for more. Hopefully, I find more. Not trying to waste that much more money on more, but I probably will. Um, so yeah, as far as that car goes, I really want to finish that car and drive that car this year. Um, as long as I possibly could. as many times as I can. So I also got to figure out if the rear end's gonna hold up, like the axles and the differential, which I'm sure it would. I don't see why it wouldn't. Maybe it might not. But anywho, on to more important news. So it is 2021. We've made some decisions, and I myself am moving to Texas. I'm moving to Houston, Texas, and I've made the decision because South Florida is pretty terrible if you want to keep drifting. I've talked to Nelson about this for hours and hours and hours, and we are both on the same page that if you want to keep drifting and you want to drive more events and you want to have more fun, living in South Florida is a terrible, terrible way to do it. You're going to waste more money and you're going to have a miserable time driving hours and hours and hours. So, with that, made the decision to move to Houston, Texas. Um, plus, the pluses to that is I'm leaving Miami, which I'm not a huge partier, so that does that. Downside is a lot of friends and stuff you're gonna be leaving behind, but I mean, for the better, right? Some people can move too. Um, moving with people, the good thing is that I know some people out there in Texas already, and it's gonna be an easier transition than just moving without knowing anybody in a certain place. So we're gonna have friends to kind of help guide and all that. And I really can't wait. Nervous for sure. Definitely wanna get the nerves over. Want to get it over with. Get the transition done already. But it's gonna be great. I mean, from what I've planned out already. There's five. I think there's five for sure. There's four tracks within like a 2 hour radius of Houston. So like um in Houston I think there's three or four. And that makes it like you can drive an event almost every weekend or every other weekend if you wanted to. If you have the money. If you have the money for that, that's great. But I don't have the money for that. But it's definitely gonna make it easier. Because like living down here we have to have a rig, a big trailer, or you not a big trailer. You don't have to have a big trailer, but if you want a group to go consistently, you have to have a rig so that you can pull multiple cars at once, just to make it easier. So you're not, it's not like five people hauling cars all together, in separate trailers, which makes it ridiculous expensive if you put all that money together. So getting a big rig was easier. But I mean, minimum besides West Palm Beach, I would from Miami have to travel uh 3.5 hours, 4 hours just to get to Orlando, and that's only to drive a skid pad. There's other places around in Florida, but I mean everything's pretty much an oval down here. It's either an oval or a skid pad. So the closest thing that we actually had was Emerald Coast. That we actually have is Emerald Coast Clutch Kickers, and that place alone is a 9.5 hour drive. So just imagine if you wanted to do one event a month, you have to prepare yourself every time for a 10 hour drive, just to make it out to an event. So you can't really do like a turn and burn uh, out there. You have to go find a place to stay, find somewhere to keep the cars. Luckily enough, they let us keep the cars there, and we can come in early, drop off the cars, and then go to wherever we're staying. Uh, but besides that, everything like going to an actual track is 9.5 hours minimum. So just think about that. Think about going to an event every time. It kind of becomes a drag, so it kind of takes away from it. Even though it's most fun you can have. That is the closest track that we have. So it only makes sense to get up and go. Um, yeah, I mean Texas, smack dab in the middle. I'm still gonna be close to Florida. Um, and just a flight away from home too. So it's gonna be great. I can't wait. Um, but yeah, this year's probably all about getting advancing the most that I definitely can and getting ahead and you know doing better. So with that said, um, last week's podcast didn't get put out. This one's gonna be out late, but it's gonna be out nonetheless. And I'm probably gonna start doing remote podcasts too. So I'll be you know having people over Skype um do some podcasts with me, and you'll see some more of that, and you'll get to see some more people that I probably can't get to as fast as I would like to. Um, Especially, yeah, for me, I'd have to travel to go and talk to a lot of people that I want to talk to and have on the podcast and all that. So this was a short one. Thank you guys for tuning in, and see you on the next Good Choice.